And so for me, the arc is wounded healer, definitely started there, turning into a healer of healers, and then becoming a leader of healers. And then when we're at leader of healers, I've noticed that sometimes you got to go back to the beginning in the wounded healer and land deeper as a soul and integrate more, and the material comes up. And so I've been going round and round this wheel since I was, 16 years old.
Welcome back to the Power and Purpose podcast. I am Vanessa Soul, your host. Thank you so much for investing your time and your energy into tuning in to today's episode. I greatly appreciate it. And I'm super excited for today's guest. We have Phenix Rose. She's a vibrational healer, mystic, trauma-informed practitioner, and community builder. Phenix, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I love asking people, who are you and who are you not?
Yeah, that's a super great question. I've been sitting with this idea of, if I were to leave a legacy behind for 7 generations, what would that be? And I've decided it's not money, it's not a building. Land may change in that point in time, but it's to leave, it's to change a culture basically. And so right now I feel like who I am is I'm here to leave a legacy of leaving the relational field of planet Earth better than I found it. And so that's been my focus, it's been my essence. Um, the connection points between you and I and everything and everyone, this focus on relationship and tending to it in a good way.
I love that. And 7 generations is a long time.
A long time.
Was there any other inspiration for that? Have you been doing ancestral healing for yourself? Because I have, and I also think about the generations after me. But for those who haven't, it may not have crossed their mind. So I'm curious, did that come about doing some ancestral like integration on behalf of like your ancestors in your line?
100%. I think having really studied relationship and trauma and somatics in the last decade, I've come to find, well, one, for me, relationships have been my biggest challenge in this lifetime. They have not been easy for me. It has not been, it has not been, yeah, it hasn't been an easy path. It's been super difficult and a lot has come up, and I've upfronted a lot of karma and pain, and that's also why I devoted to studying it so deeply, because I was watching and experiencing the fracture and the harm that we cause to one another. And then certainly I did a 2-year trauma training program with Thomas Hubel, who I highly recommend. And we ended on ancestral healing. And I got to see energetically that, let's talk 3 generations back. There was a dynamic from 3 generations back where her great grandfather had been murdered by his building manager for being Black, just shot and killed when he went to get something fixed in his apartment complex in New York City. And 3 generations later, it was still impacting her. She was still crying about it, right? And I really got to see how just because something originates in a time place between 2 people doesn't mean that it's not fractaling through time and leaving its mark. So I've tried to become really responsible of the being at the center of my web and the ripples I'm sending out and tending to the repair in my energy bodies so that I'm leaving a different sort of impact on the planet. Yeah.
So good. What a great example, because it's so true. And we don't learn about the impact of our history and our family and our ancestors until we're like halfway through adulthood, So it's so important and it's so significant. So thank you for sharing that. Now, before we kind of dive deeper into like our topic today and like your core message and all the things, I kind of want to get a glimpse of like your journey leading up to this point. Were you in this energy of the wounded healer at some point in time?
Yeah, I actually created something called the healer's journey, kind of mirrors the hero's journey, but I've been on a healer's journey. And so for me, the arc is wounded healer, definitely started there. turning into a healer of healers and then becoming a leader of healers. And then when we're at leader of healers, I've noticed that sometimes you got to go back to the beginning in the wounded healer and land deeper as a soul and integrate more, and the material comes up. And so I've been going round and round this wheel since I was, 16 years old, really.
What is the wounded healer for those who don't know? Most of us in the spiritual community, we kind of know because we're living it, or we were, or we still are. But like just for sake of clarity, what is the wounded healer?
The wounded healer is one who incarnated with a purpose, a project, a destination, a mission of some kind, but they have a lot of karmic material to tend to. It could be ancestral, it can be collective, it could be personal, right? And they're in the survival aspect of the healer, the wounds, the pain, the karmic waves, right? And that's kind of where they're swimming currently. And they're in the processing through material in their system, but it's presenting as pain, as difficulty, as challenge.
Interesting. So let's pause here for a second, and you could tell me if you disagree with me, and if you do, that's okay. So, how I think of the wounded healer is someone who is willing and ready to alchemize external things, people, situations, communities, right? Fix it mode with people outside of us, things outside of us. But when it comes to the person itself, it's like they're still very much in their own wounding. We all are in a sense, but it's more like they're resistant to personal alchemy, soul alchemy, internal alchemy, but they're trying to do the alchemy on the outside. Totally okay if you disagree. What are your thoughts on that?
I could see how it mirrors, or it's a part of the wounded healer where they're in the stage of, hey, yeah, they've incarnated with a purpose, and that purpose is to help and serve, right? But there's all this other stuff on the personal level that they haven't been tending to. Maybe they haven't been feeling, or they're swimming in it. That's their challenge and their difficulty. And yeah, I think healers tend to have an outward focus more than an inward focus. And part of the healer's journey is becoming balanced between that giving and receiving, tending and pouring out. And that's really a part of the arc. But in the wounded healer, we're mostly probably pouring out, giving, giving, giving without tending to the vessel in the way that it deserves, in the way that it needs for us to actually pour out effectively, or in an embodied way, or even in a transformational way. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're pouring out, but we haven't tended to this, then we don't actually have a lot of substance in our offering from my perspective.
I love that. And I'm seeing the overlap in our perspectives too. It's kind of like we're both hinting at this self-sacrifice. That could be with the wounded healer. And does that self-sacrifice continue into leader of healers? I don't know. So I would love to get your take on it. Let's go to your next um phase in the healer's journey. What is, for definition and for clarity, what is the healer of healers?
Yeah, healer of healers, I would say this is the part of the journey where we've integrated at least a layer of material from childhood, karma, attachment, wounding, whatever we've upfronted in our karmic field as we've incarnated. So it might be the first layer, it might be the third layer, because I've gone through several cycles of this as I deepen. But it's when we've sort of, and we've I'm trying, what is the word I'm looking for? We've alchemized enough that we can pour out more. We're stepping more into the purpose. We're stepping more into the offering. We're stepping more into our gifts. We were doing that before too, but it's becoming a little bit more integrated, a little bit more embodied, or it's kind of like in the AA journey of, part of the journey of becoming sober is to help others. Right. And so we're stepping into that. I'm really helping others, and I'm doing it from a place of having repaired some things in my own system, still carrying the wounds of the wounded healer. But more of them have been integrated so that, again, I have more substance. My soul is a little deeper landed into my body. And then I'm able to step forward with this mission more effectively.
And then what is the leader of healers?
Yeah. So leader of healers would be a high level of integration on the previous layer of material. So here's what I believe, that when we reach a new level of coherence energetically. So we've integrated a lot, we've repaired a lot, our chakras are open, our energy field is just vibrating, magnetic, glowing. It's kind of that flow state of being where everything's flowing and things are aligned, right? So when we reach that level of coherence, often what happens, it's vibrating at such a high level that a new layer of material will detox. And so that's where we go back to the wounded healer, because our coherence has actually vibrated the next layer of substance, of stuff in our system for us to integrate, examine, and be with. And that's the path we need to go through for the soul to be able to land deeper in the body. The way I see it is like the soul's trying to land and it's hitting all the karmic material in the way, the energetic material. And as we integrate, it's able to land deeper and deeper. And then we're becoming fully human and fully divine at the same time. But like a lot of healers tend to be what I call like bottom down. They connect to spirit first or outside first, and they have to learn to
Yeah.
become embodied. And there's other types of people who are bottom up, where they're landed in body and material and they got that, but they have to learn to connect to spirit and other, right? So yes, the leader of healers is we've integrated a lot. We're vibrating with a high level of coherence. Things are flowing, finances are flowing. We're at the center of our wheel and we're balanced for however long we're balanced for, knowing that no state really lasts. That's one of the cool,
Of
tragic mysteries
evolution.
of this planet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Thank you for, I still have some more questions on it, but I just want to say that actually really helps. It gives a lot of context. And I'm an evolutionary astrologer, and actually what you just described is kind of like what astrologers, it's what we try to describe to people, you know, during these big moments of life, the Saturn return, the Uranus opposition, the Chiron return in our 50s, you know, like, because people are like, well, I don't want to wait till I'm 50 to like deal with my wounds. It's just, it's that recycling. And so I love this process, especially the way that I have it on my screen. I have it like each one leading to the next. It's a good visual the way I took the way you gave me the notes. But so good. So how, I'm curious, how many times, it doesn't have to be just guessing, right? We're just using numbers and the you know, as a way to measure your experience. And then I wonder, maybe I'll take a guess at mine. I don't know. It just kind of helps us put this into perspective. How many times do you think you've been through this cycle?
Mm-hmm. I went through it majorly from like 17 to 21. I call them death phases, where like my ego is being stripped, I'm turned inside out, things are tragic, like it's difficult, and then I'm in the wounded healer. So, and it can last for years. Sometimes it can last, for me, they've tended to last for years. So 17, Saturn return, and then I went through a very significant one at age 33. So I'm 37 now. So I've had 3 to 4 like return to the wounded healer, start the wheel over or deepen on the wheel. It's not really a starting over, it's a forward movement, even if it feels like a backwards movement. So yeah, I would say at least 4 like very significant dark day of the soul, turned inside out, pulled apart, and put back together. And I chose the name Phenix because this was the cycle I was going through. I
Yeah.
chose this in my Saturn return because I was like, wait a minute, my birth name didn't resonate. And I kept going through death and rebirth, death and rebirth, death and rebirth. And so I decided to just claim that energy.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, life is cyclical. Like there's going to be cycles. This idea of it being linear and getting to the next level and climbing the ladder, climbing the ladder, climbing the ladder, it is it an illusion? Maybe. It's just, or it's a fraction of the truth. You might climb a ladder, so to speak, or go to levels or ascend, quote unquote, which is what we call it in the spiritual community, or evolve, and then that spot of evolution or ascension takes you into a deeper layer of processing, of integrating. So I think that's how I'm interpreting what you're saying. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I like to relate it to like the Chinese yin yang. They made the yin yang symbol to describe all of life. So we have the light side of it with the dark spot. And so the way that I see it is the light side could be like the leader of healers. You're in the light, you're in the coherence, you're in the resource regulation, you're in the flow. But in that, then we're like that black spot is the material that's underneath, the stuff that's still unconscious, the deeper karmic integration for embodiment. And then sometimes even that is a circle, right? And sometimes we go completely into the dark where we just have a speck of light. And during these phases of wounded healer, death phases, as I call them, sometimes I felt like I was upside down in the dark, couldn't get out, but I would follow these little tendrils of light. Or it could be like an earth angel would be sent to me and they'd say the right thing at the right time, or somebody would give me recognition over here. Everything else was dark, but I'm kind of following that thread of light until my system is able to come right side up back into the light again. So I even like that yin yang imagery because, yeah, when we're in the light, there's still the unconscious, there's still the dark. And when we're in the dark, there's still the light. And it's just a great balancing act.
Absolutely. Do you have like one short specific experience to like as an example for each of these phases? Like what did it look like for you when you were in your wounded healer phase?
Yeah, I'll just go with the most recent one. So this was by far the most difficult, and they've always been the most difficult for the time, but each one becomes increasingly difficult and more complex. So my 33rd year, again, I feel like if you're on a Christ mission, I like lived all of the Christ wounds at one time. And so it was brutal. I lost everything. I ended a relationship with the greatest love of my life. My purpose was really impacted. I had been in the peak of my business and it all came crumbling down. I was slandered for a year by a former client. I was alienated from communities. Two people in my community were murdered. They were shot and killed. My like dog of 13 years, dad, I got COVID 3 times, right? It was just a constant barrage in 2021. And previously in 2020, I'd had the best year of my life. So in 2020, I was in that leader of healers energy. Everything, 10-year dreams that had been unfulfilled came to fruition in 2020. Right. I was super coherent, vibrating, money was flowing. I worked so little. I made multiple six figures. I lived in community. There's rainbows and dolphins everywhere. I attracted this great love of my life. Right. So that was a leader of healers. And then the next year, all of it crumbled as the material percolated. So I went from there to it was a 3-year process of healing myself. I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, an incurable disease, which I've since cured. And I had to go deep into this process. And through that, right, shifting into healer of healers, I learned a lot. I had to study trauma more in depth. I studied somatics more in depth. I had to get really dialed with my health. And so I even learned a lot more tools through my own process that I could then begin to apply and teach to others. So in the healer of healers, it was like, oh, I came to Austin. I started my Rose Temple project. It's a community project, live in temple, event space. And so I began to take some of the pieces that I had learned and apply them in this community event teaching setting. However, I still wasn't fully integrated from the wounding of the wounded healer phase. And so that phase was probably about a year last year till in May, I went to Mexico for 2.5 months by myself. I knew that I had things to tend to in my system, that I wasn't totally cooked and complete. I wanted to sit with myself. So I meditated for 2.5 months every day, and I just was with all of the material. And through that, I integrated so much. And I've returned to Austin in the leader of healers archetype, which I feel like I was in, but I am way more deeply in now, having sat with myself, having tended to the internal space, having faced some of the things that were still energetically congested in my system. And so now in the leader of healers, money is flowing, 10K plus months are easy. I'm not doing a lot. I'm letting frequency come right to me. Connections are coming out of everywhere, wanting time, energy to talk to me. I've like during the wounded healer, I could feel really alone or like there's nobody around. And here in the leader of healers, everybody is wanting my time and energy, and my life is very full. And simultaneously, I'm very regulated. I'm grounded. I'm at the center of my wheel. I can feel it. Things are in balance. And the things that come up, because the darkness is still there all the time, but my capacity to move through it is greater. And my leadership is stronger because there's more substance in my body. So, short version.
Yeah, beautiful. What a descriptive example for the wounded healer and leader of healers.
Mhm.
Can we hone in just a little bit so we all understand like a real life example, so that way we could identify where we're at in this cycle? What would it look like, or what did it look like for you, like a specific time of for a healer of healers?
Yeah, there's several times. Like literally for me, what it's looked like is teaching healing to healers. Because I am a healer and I train people in healing. So for me specifically, it's when I've stepped into, okay, let me take what I've learned, put it into a program or an offering, and then I guide people through their wounded healer journey. Basically, I've gotten really good at guiding people through the dark day of the soul, the spiritual emergence turned emergency, right? And but for me, it's a space where maybe there's still a lot of there can be insecurity or instability from the impact of all the things that happen during the wounded healer, but there's more steadiness, there's more availability. There might still be karmic attraction points, relationship dynamics coming in that are showing me. They're showing me what's still unintegrated, what's still uncooked. And so, for example, last year I was teaching, community events. I was teaching a lot. I've been teaching a lot of trauma healing and relational connective and tantra. But I was still attracting these kind of chaotic relationships, like very dramatic, chaotic, manipulative. There was an incongruence between polyamory and monogamy happening around me. And so I was just seeing all of that in the healer of healers. It's like, oh, I'm doing the work, I'm in my purpose, I'm sharing my gifts. And at the same time, there's these dynamics that are really activating. They're kind of knocking me off my center occasionally. They're showing me some patterns around communication and my relationship attraction point that need deeper exploration. So then I chose to become more congruent, to sit with myself, to tend to those parts, to really look at the mirror, look at the reflections that were coming, what I needed to learn and absorb. And then in choosing to integrate with that and choosing to be with that material, the actual leader of leader was able to emanate through that space. Hopefully that's a little better, but
Yeah, yeah, no, so much good info there. Thank you for that. I have to say this four-step cycle process kind of reminds me of a conversation I had with Lily Bruley, and she talked about these four dating archetypes for women. Um, and I'm trying to remember all four of them. I'm looking at my notes here. I think it goes like the chill woman, to the fortress woman, to the goddess woman, to the magnetic woman. So if anyone's listening, you might want to listen to that episode. It's episode 109. It's called The Magnetic Woman with Lily Bruley, and it's called A New Map for Conscious Dating. Anyway, so it's another, if you like archetypes, if you're loving this conversation, you might get, I don't know, some value out of listening to both of these episodes, because what Phoenix was just talking about, like you're in the healer of healers, it kind of reminds me of, for that example, the fortress stage and the goddess stage for Lily's like roadmap and how she talks about it. It's kind of like another spinoff of the attachment styles, but again, it allows us to have a different perspective of a process so that we're not stuck in the attachment styles while we're trying to do conscious dating, and we're not feeling disempowered or shameful for being in a certain one, but we're having more awareness in a different way. So anyway, this reminded me, the wounded healer, the healer of healers, the leader of healers, and then returning through this process. I think it might be kind of interesting, you guys, if you go look at that other episode 109, to see the dating archetypes, and if that adds any value to kind of how you can bring self-awareness to your journey. So
oh, I'm super interested in that one because I'm
yeah.
so relational right now and I'm single. So I'd be very interested. I could
Yeah.
resonate with the fortress and the going and like what it feels like to be magnetic. And yeah, so
Yeah,
I'll go
yeah.
check that
And
one
since we're
out.
talking about it, yeah, so the chill woman, she phases it, or she paraphrases it as kind of like you're super chill, everything goes. You might be partying, you might be, hanging out with different guys. And so, like, that reminds us, for most women, when we're teenagers or when we're in like our younger 20s, we're like super chill. Like, yeah, I'm dating this guy over here, I'm going to this party, not a lot of standards or boundaries. We're just like whatever flows, whatever goes. And then the fortress, she describes it as really being in this healing state, and you might actually have some guards around your heart, and you know, you're doing the healing work and you're really just trying to repair a lot of the stuff that might have happened from the chill woman state. And then the goddess woman, I believe, is you're still doing a lot of healing. It's almost exact to your healer of healers. Like you've done a lot of the work. The self-awareness is there, you know, but there's still like this mismatch. So that's what caught my eyes when you were talking about this mismatch within the dating world, or chaotic relationships, or monogamy over here, and then polyamory over here, like still in your field, you know, like a little bit of a mismatch, and I'm not sure of the details, but that would be the goddess stage. And then the magnetic is, she was kind of saying, and you know, this is her process that she downloaded probably from the consciousness, but the magnetic woman is more like where we strive to be. It's kind of like that wisdom, boundaries, you know, we hold our commitments to ourselves. There's little or no self-sacrifice. You know, it's kind of like that integrated woman state. So anyway, really interesting stuff. Really
Yeah,
interesting.
it's that's that piece, the magnetic woman, has been very interesting because in this journey of returning to leader of healers on my latest arc, right? My energy is vibrant. I'm flowing. Like, again, I'm attracting connections everywhere all the time, except interestingly, because I did deeper congruence work on, let's say, polyamory and monogamy and orienting to what I really want relationally, my field is so dialed right now that I'm actually not getting very much male attention. But my chill girl always got male attention every time, everywhere, but it was never from who I wanted. It was from everyone else. And
Right.
so it's been a really interesting thing that while I can feel how freaking magnetic I am, simultaneously, I'm actually magnetizing less, but higher quality. It's like when something is able to penetrate my field, I trust it more because I'm attracting less in a lot of ways in the romantic arena. In friendship, I'm still attracting a lot. So I found that to be a really interesting. I've been sitting with that this eclipse of
Mm.
like, wait a minute, it's a lot quieter around me romantically, but I just got so dialed and congruent that yeah, the other stuff that's not that isn't able to actually penetrate my
Yeah.
fields.
We're less accessible
I'm less
because we
accessible.
value ourselves, our time, our energy, our
Mhm.
wisdom. We're not trying to heal our partners. This is just me paraphrasing because I've been there. We're not trying to heal every guy that we date. We're not, you know, we're not trying to fix them. We're not trying to save them or nurture them or be their mom. It's like, this is where I'm at. Are we vibrating at the same similar level? And if not, I'm not available for that. That's what it is.
Yeah, I found it really interesting as I became like more energetically available through integration. It simultaneously became less available to a lot of things, including emotional unavailability. So it was a really interesting paradox of like, oh my God, so much more of me is available, but simultaneously I'm available for a lot less. One of those mystical paradoxes, I call them.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I can relate. Have you ever heard, this is just a random thought. My ADHD is kind of active today. Have you ever heard the saying, it's like when you're vibrating high, and I try not to use low vibration, high vibration that much, but here's the thing. The concept is when you're vibrating high, people, it's almost like they don't see you. Have you heard that?
I have been experiencing that. I have been
Okay.
commenting on it. It has been a huge part of my eclipse themes because, again, I'm so grounded and resourced and everything is flowing everywhere. But simultaneously, when I go out, aside from some close friends and new friends are definitely vibrating, but I'm like, they can't see me. And
Oh,
I've just been
interesting.
trusting that, but it's also been stirring so much in my system. I've had to tend to, again, that was
Okay.
like the stillness and the quiet. Yeah, I've been actively experiencing that where I'm like, ah, you can't see me. But if they can't see me, they're not it. They're clearly not
Right.
it.
Right. It's
Yeah.
protective. It is protective. And that's our feminine force, just kind of, that's our, that's our feminine aura. Once, when we integrate and we surrender to processes and we surrender to ourselves and like the magnetics, and then acceptance, when we're just more in that divine feminine energy, I feel like it has like this outer protective layer of invisibility, because it's like, oh, they don't need to see this, her, just let her glide through. Just let her continue. Don't interrupt her flow. She's in like the feminine flow. Like don't do it. So it is a little bit protective, but yes, it can bring up those the ego. We all have the ego, right? It's the expression of the soul. You could choose to believe that, or you could choose to believe it's edging God out. Whatever floats your boat, you guys. But there is still that logical part, like, feeling unseen, that could still happen. And then that's also part of integrating into this ascended feminine energy too. So it all still benefits our process of evolution.
I actually had a really cool experience with it just 2 days ago. I went down to Austin, Capitol, to do prayers for peace for the wars in all of life. And I'd been hanging out with a bunch of girlfriends, but I was feeling like, do I belong here? Like they're not really like sometimes they're talking to me, but sometimes I'm kind of standing alone. And I was just really feeling kind of like an oddball. And then we went to this event. I had already walked in and been welcomed, and then I left to go to the loo. And when I came back, there was a guy standing at the door and he was the welcomer. He just stopped me and he saw me and he engaged like clear on for so long. He was still doing his job, but he was totally right here. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the frequency. Like I've been saying all summer, what is meant for me will come right to me. And I've had to really trust that, yeah, less is coming to me in a lot of ways, but that which comes right to me is actually meant for me. And so it was a really cool experience where I was like, I'm invisible, they're not really seeing me. And then boom, the right person did. We had a beautiful exchange. And yeah, that one was meant for me.
I
Mhm.
love it. I love
Mhm.
it. I love it. So I want to talk a little bit more about like vibrational healing and energy work. What do you think is the transformation within this type of work? It could be so many different things. So like whatever, and it's relative. So it might be something, depending on the day that I asked you this question, but what comes to mind?
Yeah. So I started vibrational healing when I was 22, and I have stuck with it because it has changed my whole life. So I am a success story, and that's why I've devoted my life to it. I wouldn't devote my life to something that didn't work for me. But for me, I am now seeing healing. So if we think of the auric field as a river of movement, like when our field is healed, when it's integrated, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of life. It's in motion. But trauma kind of acts like rocks in the river. And so we get all these rocks in the river, and then we start to have symptoms, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And it's all energy. Einstein's proved we're entirely composed up of energy. So I believe all of our diseases are made up of energy and can be treated with energy. But again, vibrational healing, especially in the way that I tend to it, is connecting with the trauma, with the distortions, and returning them to flow. And that's integration. That's allowing the soul. The soul can't land in the body when there's a bunch of rocks in the river. There's no space for it. So it kind of maybe exists outside. But as we integrate, as we heal, and again, all vibrational, then the soul's able to land deeper. That energy restores to movement, and our symptoms disappear. So that's how I see healing right now. The restoration of the energy body's original movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And can people get stuck in the healing process or maybe overstay their welcome? The reason why I'm asking is because, I did healing work, and the most frustrating thing for me is I felt like people were just kind of way too comfortable in that I'm broken mentality, or I need this, or or I'm not ready. I have to work on this, I have to work on that. I have to do all these things. I have to fix myself. That was my experience. That may not be your experience, but like do you feel like you see that at times or not so much?
I've been sitting with that question because there's a lot of, influences around talking about like, you don't need healing, you're perfect as you are. And simultaneously, I'm a healer devoted to healing on my path. So it's been a topic in my mind lately. But I feel like when people are getting stuck in that I'm broken and something here needs fixed, that's actually pointing to the nervous system being dysregulated. So it is actually pointing potentially to healing that is needed because they're stuck in a loop. Anytime there's a loop, except for the healer's journey, just joking, also a loop. Um, but I see anytime there's a loop where somebody's like repeating in a cycle without forward movement, that's the sympathetic nervous system that's activated. It's stuck on. And so when we tend to that sympathetic dysregulation and have regulation, then boom, yeah, we do get to enjoy phases of life where we're in coherence, where things are flowing, where we don't need, like, I don't need to go hunting ever because material will always present when it's time for the material to present. So I don't need to go chasing it because, yeah, even if I'm good today, tomorrow something might come up. When I was good yesterday, something came up today. So yes, I do believe, and I do believe people love getting hooked on or addicted to being sick, right? We get value out of our diseases. It might be like attention from your dad or not having to work, or there's so much value in maintaining disease if we like slow down to look at what's there.
Thank you for your perspective on that. And so maybe that's it. So it's like if we see ourselves looping in that healing cycle or clients or friends, question them, but it's more about just maybe having compassion or having the awareness that there is some benefit, right? Like some people are getting compassion and sympathy from being sick or always needing help or something like that. I'm not saying that's always the case. It can be in some circumstances. Um, for me, it was avoidance. I'll just speak personally at this point. I was avoiding, and this is before I started my journey helping others with healing, with energy healing and psychic work and all of that. Before I even started all of that, I was avoiding even coming into that, and so I stayed in this really toxic relationship and I stayed in the drugs and the alcohol, and it was more of that thing like I don't know why I can't stop these things. I just didn't want to move forward. There was just a fear of the future. Or I didn't know what came next. It was just so unfamiliar. I didn't know what my life would look like. But once I stepped into doing, coaching and healing and psychic work for others, then it was like, "Oh my God, this is beautiful. Like I can't believe I avoided this for so long." Not to say that my healing was done because I went even deeper. I was in a whole nother cycle doing deeper work on myself or working with other people who were supporting me. So, really interesting stuff. Any other comments on that?
Similarly, recently I had to face my own. So all of that happened in 2021 and it was devastating to all aspects of my life. And since then, I've been like trying to get back to the same degree of wealth and flow and business success, but hitting a bunch of roadblocks. And I invested a lot in coaching, but it wasn't helping me break through. And I finally was like, okay, there's a wall here. Like, let me pay attention to this wall that keeps coming up because not, I'm applying everything, but nothing's helping here. So I need to just be really real. And what I found was that my nervous system had associated a story with like, if I experience success, I'm going to lose everything. And
Mm,
because of how much I just went through, my system was unprepared to go through that again. So it was like holding me, I was holding myself smaller, right? Because my nervous system wasn't ready for the risk of losing it all. Like I'm still not desiring or ready for that. I've integrated those pieces now so that more flow and success and wealth is happening. But I had to face that. Like I had been keeping myself in that spot because I still needed integration. I still needed to sort through the pain and I wasn't ready to open again to the risk and to the potential pain that
yeah.
my story was associated with.
Yeah, I can relate to that one. I had that one too.
Mhm.
And when I brought it to awareness, I was so shocked. I was like, I have a fear of success. I have a fear that I'm gonna lose it all or everyone's gonna come after me for it. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And it's a lot of times, sometimes it's unconscious or it's one of your parts, or your conscious mind is just not acknowledging it, right? Because you're just trying to get through the day and like things like that. So, really, really interesting. What is resource? I said it wrong. What's the right way to say it?
We source.
Okay.
Yeah, we source is kind of part of my new method of relational healing. So, um, it is resource, nervous system regulation, but it's doing it together in a relationship. We're doing it together. And so, what I have found through my healing journey, my healer's journey, for me as a child, I didn't have a lot of resource available to me. My family doesn't have skills. They haven't really been on a self development journey. There wasn't a lot of spiritual, emotional support, physical support, yes. So I had to raise myself emotionally in a lot of ways. But then I had a lot of distortion in my relationships. Again, it's been my most challenging place. And so what I've been learning and teaching is a process. I call it feeling you, feeling me. It's a relational healing process for touching trauma or for moving through conflict in relationships where if you're sharing your pain with me rather than reacting to your pain, I'm feeling it inside of your body. I'm touching it with you. So you're no longer alone in your pain. And when you're no longer alone in your pain, it begins to return to that river of flow. Right. And so, and then we become more resourced, but it's through the relationship dynamic, which is why I'm calling it we source, because all of our trauma, right? Our trauma is trapped in our system because something occurred at some point in time that was too overwhelming for you or me to deal with. It was like we didn't have the support system, we didn't have the time, we didn't have the housing, the security to take the time to integrate whatever the trauma was. And so we kind of freeze it in time. And we sourcing is a way of like touching that frozen energy together. Because the idea is when you're no longer alone in your pain, when I'm feeling it with you, it can melt. The numbness, the frozen parts, the energy stuck in time returns to flow. And that's what we sourcing is.
Mm, powerful process. So I love your process of we sourcing,
Hmm.
WE source.
Hmm.
Do we also resource with the R from the spirit world or energetics around us?
Yeah, totally. I actually had this experience this summer. I'm a spirit communicator, and my channel to the spirit world is open when I have connection regulation. But I had something come up this summer and I had reached out for we sourcing and it was unavailable in the moment that I needed. So I sat in my meditation practice and I talked to the Mayan ancestors that I had been working with all summer. And the spirits actually helped me regulate and move through that layer at that point in time. And my brain opened. I was like, oh, I've been trying to rely on humans for this. But right here, there was a whole spirit faction that you could do it with God. A lot of people use Jesus or different deities. I've certainly used all of them at different points in time. But at this point, it was like a group of Mayan elders that helped me move through my process. Similarly, yeah, if relationship's not available or if you don't have that spirit connection open, there's a lot of things we can do with body. I always say you have to be aware of where your dysregulation is at. Is it in the sympathetic dysregulation? That means you're in fight, flight, stuck in loops. The mind is racing, the adrenaline's going, everything's a little faster. Or are you more in dorsal vagal, like total shutdown, going to sleep, can't function? And then if we know where we're at in dysregulation, there's things that you can do to help. So in dorsal vagal, you don't add a lot of movement to it because the system is so overwhelmed, it's shut down. You do one thing. It's like you look around the room or you wiggle your fingers or you smell something and that's it, right? You do one and only one thing. You stop everything else until the system comes down a bit. With sympathetic, if you're there's like a spectrum 0 to 10. If you're at 0 to 5, you can meditate, you can do breath work, you can sort of move it that way. But if you're at 5 to 10 on the sympathetic scale of dysregulation, you need to get up, you need to go for a walk, you need to shake it out, dance it out, punch something, and follow the movement in the system to allow regulation. So those are ways I have of regulating with the body if spirit and relationship is not available. Self-regulation, absolutely.
Beautiful. You partly answered my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because you might have something to add to it. For the person who is looping, right? We introduced this earlier. So this is who we're talking to now. Um, like what do you have a message for them? So maybe they're not doing healing work right now for whatever reason. Maybe it's time constraints, maybe they don't think they need it, doesn't matter the reason. They may not be doing personal development or evolution work or integration or anything like that, but they're starting to become aware that they're looping in something. You partly answered it about the different states of like what we could do when we're in, when we need to kind of source or resource or connect with our body. But what else can they do, or do you have a message for those people right now?
Yeah, anytime we're stuck in a loop, a repeating story, that's going around in circles. You're telling the same story to everyone. You're telling the same story to yourself, and you can't get off that train. That's the sympathetic nervous system. That means you're dysregulated, right? And so then you need to tend to your regulation. And again, the sympathetic is the part that's moving, it's activated. It's the part of the brain that says, there's something, there's danger. I need to move now. I have to do something right now. Right. So when the brain is saying, I'm in danger, the loop is coming. Where do I go? Do I go this direction? And it's like seeing danger everywhere. But this is when you do have to do something now, but it's not sending the message to the person that you're looping about. It's not getting in a fight, right? It's doing something productive. Again, shaking it out, going for a walk, breathing. Breathing can really help. Sympathetic, like even just throwing the temper tantrum on your bed by yourself so that it's not hurting anybody, right? But to follow the motion in the system, because the sympathetic is in motion. So we need to allow motion to come in to help that energy drop back down. It's actually the worst time when you're in that loop or when you're in sympathetic dysregulation to sit still. Because if you sit still, you can do it when you're at a 0 to 5. But if you're at a 5 to 10 and you're sitting in it and you're curled in a ball, you're going to escalate, right? The looping and the drama and the reactivity is going to get higher. So that's a really important time to get up, to move, to walk, to work out, to scream into a pillow, to dance it out, and do it in a productive way.
Yeah, powerful. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. This confirmation or this conversation has been so confirming. That's what I was going to say. It's been so much confirmation within this conversation. So thank you. Thank you. Um, I want you guys to connect with Phenix if this podcast episode has resonated with you. So I'm going to give you her links. And while I'm doing that, Phenix, if you also want to sit with a quote you want to share or a book recommendation. It could be either or both, whatever floats your boat, as long as it's short and sweet. So connect with her. Her links are here in the description. Her website is embodiedenergy.me. Embodiedenergy.me. Her Instagram is Phenix Rose Healing, and then her Facebook link is here too. So it's all in the description. You just drop down and connect with her. And also, I forgot, tell us about one powerful offer that you have or how people can work with you in one way. And then again, the quote or the book, either one.
Totally. I guess since I talked about we sourcing and feeling you, feeling me, then I'll share about my program, Feeling You, Feeling Me, where I have it both digitally and I have it also as a one-on-one where you can learn this relational process. You can learn it if you're a practitioner. You can learn it if you're wanting to become healthier at relationship. It's really good. If you've ever had conflict with somebody that escalated and you couldn't get through it and you just ended up creating more disconnect, right? Learning this process of tending to material in the relational system, what to do with it, how to feel it, how to sense it, how to move through it with skill, so that rather than escalating and creating disconnect, we're actually moving closer to connection. So that's Feeling You, Feeling Me. It's both available digitally and through working with me personally. So if you feel called, you can check that out. And I would say one book I would recommend. This is the book that changed my life and started me on my healing journey. So it's I vouch for it through the last 15 years. It's called Positive Energy by Judith Orliff. And she's a famous psychologist, psychotherapist who's also a subtle energy practitioner. And it's titled 10 Prescriptions for Achieving Positive Energy. Changed my life. It's what got me started on this healing path. Highly recommend, especially if you're just starting out with energy.
Beautiful. I haven't heard of that one before. So thank you.
Yeah,
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I appreciate your time and your energy. And Phenix, thank you. I appreciate your wisdom, your energy, and just showing up with all of your goodness. It's been such a pleasure. Namaste, everyone. Have a great day.